Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the watchdog trusts.
Sometimes the best time to prune trees is when they're dormant or with no leaves on them. For ISA certified arborists, it helps them see what branches may need to be pruned or removed. Dormant season pruning can also help lessen problems associated with insects and diseases and help create structurally stronger trees that can better handle heavy wet snows or ice buildup. Contact an ISA certified arborist to get the best professional advice on keeping your trees healthy and safe. Go to treesforohio.org. That's trees, the number 4, ohio.org.
We're a farm store, a family store, a look what I found store. We're a store made for real people and some real beasts. We're a hey neighbor kind of store and an everyday low price store. We're Rural King, and we're working hard to be your favorite store. Check out the huge selection of men's, women's, and kids' Wrangler clothing at the lowest prices every day, like these Wrangler Retro Bootcut jeans for just $49.99.
Hey man, what can I get you?
Yeah, can I have 2 Coors Lights?
You got it. Hey Mike! I need 2 Coors Lights!
Sure thing.
With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time. Here you go.
Thanks, Mike. Doing a great job. All right, 2 ice-cold Coors Lights.
That's the coldest beer I've ever had.
Hey, they don't call it the world's most refreshing beer for nothing.
Okay, be honest with me. Do you really have the Rocky Mountains in your beer cooler?
You don't believe it? Check it out.
Man, that's pretty amazing.
I know, right? I can't believe it myself sometimes. I mean, this cooler is only 3 feet wide.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
Being young protects us kids from a lot of things.
Like paying bills.
And boring meetings.
Blech.
But there's one big thing being young doesn't protect us from. That's COVID.
Since August, COVID has made an average of 100,000 kids a week sick.
But now, kids 5 to 11 can get a vaccine tailored to give us the best protection. For me.
For us.
For kids.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for riding with the Watchdog. Live and local. Just the way you like it.
Hello, everyone, from the Watchdog. I'm the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster, with a look at your local weather forecast for your Tuesday. Let's call it partly sunny skies, a daytime high of 32 degrees, with an overnight low of 26 under partly cloudy skies. Mostly cloudy with a few rain showers, maybe even a few wet snowflakes mixed in for your Wednesday, with a high near 41. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
On FM, on AM, online, on demand, and on video. We are where you are. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe is here now.
It is 8:11 on the Watchdog Morning Show, 27 degrees, Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 27. Here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, and 27 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Biff, we should maybe start off mentioning we got a couple of basketball games coming up this evening here on the Watchdog stations, right?
Actually, we just have one tonight. Steubenville and John Marshall.
Oh, I had a Central game on my schedule. That's been moved or gone, or?
Yeah, we canceled that game 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So I'll get that off my schedule then. Okay. So as I said, we have one game tonight here on the Watchdog stations. Beginning at 7:30, Steubenville versus John Marshall. Which I guess is all we've got then. All right. Plus we have WVU men's basketball this afternoon at 4 o'clock. They take on Baylor. So we have that for you as well. That's coming up today here on the Watchdog. It is 8:12, 12 minutes after the hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Next half hour, we're going to talk with Brad McElhenney about some of the things pending in the legislature, hearings on the anti-abortion bill yesterday. I asked Brad to look into this, what do they call it, the West Virginia Infrastructure Recruitment Bill or some such thing as that. It's a bill designed to prohibit cities and counties and other municipalities from creating their own anti-discrimination laws. The legislative leadership, Republicans, want to only have the state anti-discrimination laws as the only kind of anti-discrimination laws. Some cities like Wheeling, like Morgantown, like Charleston, have more liberal laws, and the Republican leadership doesn't like that. So I asked Brad to look into that bill. He's done a little bit of research. We'll hear more about that coming up. And they're talking about a moment of silence to open up the school year in Ohio, in West Virginia Public Schools as well. It's an issue I don't have like great problems with, other than saying this is what you got to worry about in the legislature. All of that coming up in the next half hour. And coming up in a minute or two, we're going to be talking about Joe Biden and his one-year anniversary. How has he done? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs right across the middle. Tom Scudieri with us in just a bit. But first, as always around this time of the morning during the legislative session, we check in with Metro News and the Morning Capital Report.
This is the Metro News Capital.
Is scheduled to pass a resolution during its floor session. I'm Jeff Jenkins on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
And again, we'll have more on the legislature coming up next hour with Brad McElhenney, our State House reporter, here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Before I get to Tom, I just want to do real quick, as Paul Harvey used to say, shop talk. This week, a talk show host from the West Coast, a longtime talk show host, passed away. His name was Michael Jackson. No, not that Michael Jackson, not the singer, not the performer. Tail end of the talk show host Michael Jackson's career, he was always getting confused with the singer. Michael Jackson came to this country from Great Britain. He had a very distinctive British accent. He started a KABC radio back in 1966, helped to create the concept of talk radio, really. He was at that station for 32 years and then went to a few others in Los Angeles before retiring. He'd been suffering from Parkinson's disease for the last couple of years. Passed away this weekend at the age of 87. He interviewed everybody under the sun, just about every president during his lifetime, all of the big celebrities and so on. He did a great old-fashioned radio talk show. And what do I mean by that? I mean, yes, he delved in politics, but he also delved into celebrities. He delved into pop culture. He delved into the things that made people's lives interesting. And he was, I thought, a tremendous talk show host. I interviewed him at the beginning of my career, and as the ABC was beginning to put some national shows together, Michael Jackson was one of them, and I always remember his advice to me. I said, Michael, what advice do you have for young up-and-coming talk show hosts? And he said, and I'll always remember this, he said, it ain't brain surgery. It's just a radio show. And sometimes I have to keep that in mind. And sometimes I wish some of the other contemporary talk show hosts would keep that in mind. People that take themselves so seriously and think they're going to change the world. It ain't brain surgery. It's just a radio show. Anyways, Michael Jackson. You all don't have any idea who I'm talking about, but he was a major player in the talk radio world, creating the whole concept of talk radio, and doing it better than anybody I ever heard or knew. All right, that was my shop talk. It's 8:19 here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Time to talk politics and other matters like that. And for that, we welcome to the program our national correspondent, Tom Squidieri. Tom, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on your show.
I saw this morning, before we get to some other stuff, I saw this morning it looks like COVID has hit some of our military leaders.
Yeah, again, General Milley, Mark Milley, the chair of the Joint Chiefs Staff, has COVID. He's working from a remote location, his office said, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Berger, he also has COVID. The Marines were less specific as to where he is, but he's also remote, obviously. So, earlier this month, Secretary Austin, Defense Secretary Austin, had COVID. He's back now in a very limited Pentagon personnel capacity because the Pentagon is at a higher level of health alert, level Charlie, and that's really restricted the number of people who are in the Pentagon. For example, our briefing room, which normally has about 40 chairs, has been at 20 for more than a year now. It's down to 8. So in other words, only 8 reporters can actually be in the room when John Kirby or whoever is giving us a briefing, and the rest of us watch it from a secure link elsewhere because of COVID. So it's really hitting the Pentagon hard. And Howard, what's interesting, it should be stated, that's one of the most highly vaccinated places in D.C., not because they're ordered to. There's a lot of civilians in there, of course, and they've all been vaccinated, and most of them have been boosted as well. So it's not for a lack of precautions. It's just that that's how contagious the newest variant seems to be.
They seem to be everywhere. Here in West Virginia, Governor Justice is coming off a week of COVID. Yeah. He has been vaccinated and boosted. He has been a strong advocate of everybody getting vaccinated. And Governor Justice was very sick for a while. He himself said he was extremely unwell. He was back at the Capitol yesterday. He even, Governor Justice holds his press briefings still by Zoom. He doesn't even have the reporters in the room. Mm-hmm. He's very cautious about this, and yet still came down with COVID. I guess the point is, I heard somebody say, I don't know if I'll buy quite this much, but we're all going to get it at some point. I mean, it is.
Well, I hope not. I hope not, but yeah. I mean, the press corps at the Pentagon has been hit significantly as well. Both last year, before the vaccinations started being available, a few press members had gotten COVID, but it wasn't, as widespread as it is now, and many more have gotten it in the latest round of the Omicron, I guess.
I don't know if more people are getting it, more people are not, if people are being less cautious now, if this strain is more virulent. It's not as deadly, but it's more infectious, I guess, than Delta. I'm really not sure what's going on out there, but it seems like more and more people are getting it. The testing lines here in the local area are very, very long, and we have seen a 4-fold increase in positive tests in the Wheeling area since Christmas. So something's going on out there. Good news is hospitalizations, while they're up, aren't up commensurately. So I guess that's the good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but, everyone getting it theory, I think a lot of people believe they had some variation of COVID early on before we recognized it as COVID. Who knows? I mean, it's just what you said. It seems to be much more contagious, if not, more deliberate. I can't say the word. More devastating.
Right.
More harmful.
Yep.
Listen, my son had it for a week. I think my son had it for a week.
Oh, really?
For example. Yeah, he caught it. He went foolishly, and I say this, I told it to his face, so I'll tell it to the radio. He went foolishly to a concert, and, he showed me the video later, and it's a mosh pit with no one wearing masks. So, he's going to catch it. It has high school. He's a high school senior, and, his high school has that problem like other high schools. So he caught it. He was out for a week or so. He was, not in any health danger, thank goodness, but, he caught it. Boom. And probably a bunch of his friends did as well that night.
Tom, I want to talk this week a minute or two here about Joe Biden 1 year afterwards. He was sworn into office January 20th of last year. He has had just about a year in office now. Came in with great fanfare, but hit an awful lot of stumbling blocks along the way. His poll ratings are really low. In some polls, about as low as they've been, as any president's been in a very long time. On the other hand, a lot of Democrats are saying there's a lot of accomplishments to take note of. I'm curious, what is your assessment? What's your report card of Joe Biden here 1 year later?
I think I'm tracking basically how you opened that up, Howard. Is that he came in with a lot of expectations from different reasons. One is a lot of his support came because people didn't want to have Donald Trump as president again, as opposed to wanting Joe Biden as president. Much like Donald Trump won because a lot of people didn't want to have Hillary Clinton as president. So it was that kind of vote. So Joe Biden comes to become president on his third attempt, and he's old. He's the oldest person to be inaugurated as president, and so in the first term. And so then he's in a hurry. He wants to get a lot done. And I remember early on, people were saying he's going to be like FDR, and he had a lot of great proposals based on his long time in government and thinking he knows what has to be done and what the country needs. So he launched a very, very, very ambitious program, and he's doing it in a time of bipartisan divide. And his attempts early on to sort of bridge the gap between the parties just didn't succeed. And a lot of the reasons are a lot of Republicans just didn't want to help him. And we, forget about the Democratic turmoil within the party. It just wasn't the atmosphere that Biden was used to when he had been in the Senate in the 90s and the 80s and so forth. So that hurt. Now, you're absolutely correct. He has had some amazing achievements. I mean, the jobless rates, I looked these up for our show, 3.9%. It was, 6% when he took office. The vaccination rate is almost 64%, which is really among the highest. It is not really. It's among the highest in the world of countries. He has that infrastructure bill that finally passed. But then again, he has the setbacks, as we know, with the Build Back Better bill and the voting rights, which is a major issue to him. He kept his promise to get out of Afghanistan, but we saw what happened, how it ended. Not good. So it's almost like you have a yin and a yang on a lot of his efforts and successes and failures.
Mitt Romney this weekend made a comment that I actually agree with. I don't agree where he eventually took the comment, but his original comment, he said, Joe Biden was not elected to, quote, transform America. He was elected to, quote, stop the crazy. And I think that's a point that maybe Biden himself and other progressive Democrats have forgotten. It really wasn't policy changes that put Biden and Democrats in office. It was, God help us, we don't want any more of Donald Trump. Stop the crazy, in Romney's words. And I think there was some real misreading on Biden's part, and certainly on the progressive Democrats' part, especially in the House, that they had been called to make giant changes. And I think that's part of where Biden kind of has gotten off track. I think an incremental presidency that just kind of calmed the waters was really what Americans were looking for. And instead, we began this big transformational presidency. And I don't think that's necessarily what was being desired by the bulk of Americans. I could be wrong, but that's the way I look at it.
I agree with you fully. I agree with you fully, and you said it much better than what I was trying to say. Let's just say what if for a moment, and I think Senator Romney was correct in what you point. He did go a little bit off. So Biden gets in, calms things down. He had a pretty good inauguration speech, calmed things down. He wants to unify the country. That's a hard task right there. That doesn't mean you can't do things like an infrastructure bill. Let's remember that bill got bipartisan support, limited, but nevertheless some bipartisan support. Infrastructure, I've said this on your show before, I think is one of the great opportunities for bipartisanship, and because it serves the needs of people in all kinds of districts. And we've talked about this before. In West Virginia, you had one of your own House members a Republican vote for the bill. Right. If you want to calm the country down, and you want to sort of try to reignite some bipartisanship, infrastructure was a great way to go. And, incremental steps like that. And, you could have worked on voting rights a little bit later, maybe this year. But I think you're right. He came in, and as I said earlier, people are saying he's going to be like FDR, a transition. I never saw him as being elected to be a transformational president either. It was, we don't want any more of this crazy unpredictability. I think I know I've said this on your show about a year ago, Howard. You once asked me, what's it like going to the Pentagon with Donald Trump as president. He didn't put it quite like that, but, and the fact was that they never knew what they were going to wake up to. We're going to be pulled out of Syria today. And they just never knew that. And for an organization like the Pentagon, which doesn't like surprises, obviously, that was not a fun 4 years. So, again, when Biden came in, I'm talking about the Pentagon folks, they saw a return to what you saw, an end to the crazy, an end to the unexpected zigzagging of America into ways that they were concerned about. Forget about the craziness that you and I are referring to, just, the calmness that they sought, the consistency that they sought. And, the difference, and we didn't talk about this, but the difference is that NATO, the relationship with NATO, for example, is much better, even though Biden has stumbled in that even. From the Pentagon perspective, they think it's been a good first year in regards to NATO and our alliances, not Afghanistan, but our NATO and our alliances.
I think that the president and his left side of the aisle supporters misread part of why he was there. That's number one. Then some things happened that I don't think were predictable, but they led to him having problems. The Afghanistan pullout was a real boondoggle in the beginning. I think they've recovered a bit on that, but that came in fairly early, and that came to be a problem. The Biden ran on, I'm a creature of the Senate. I can help bring compromise, bipartisanship.
Yeah.
But the reality is that there is no bipartisanship in contemporary politics on Capitol Hill. And COVID kind of got away from him. I don't know that it's in any way that he could have changed it, but it kind of got away from him. So some of this was of his own doing, and some just was what was foisted upon him. And then for whatever reason, his accomplishments, as you pointed out, Tom, aren't really getting the attention that they need to be. I think it was James Carville over the weekend who said Democrats got to start talking about what have we done, and stop complaining about what we can't get done, which I think is a pretty good point, at least as a political strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I look at the Biden administration, I think back to what someone here in D.C. told me when I was doing a story on Secretary Austin earlier on, who came into office, low key, kind of like Biden, in a sense that he was a solid choice, and he had an ambitious agenda of social issues, getting rid of sexual harassment, dealing with extremism, all these sort of internal issues. And this expert here in D.C. told me, well, he can do that until the Taliban says otherwise. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but point being what you just said, that external issues, events tend to transform what you have to do as a leader. In this case, Defense Secretary, in case President Biden is President of the United States. So, the Taliban changed the dynamics of the Afghan withdrawal beyond what the Defense Department and the White House could do. They were sort of, reacting as opposed to being proactive. Same with President Biden on COVID. It's a great example. I mean, the whole Omicron, as we were talking about, that's a whole different layer of COVID. And you even have it to the point where former President Trump is telling people, he's vaccinated, you should get vaccinated, which is, incredible on some level. Nevertheless, the whole COVID thing has thrown off the agenda as well, because you can't have restaurants going back, all the reasons we know about, which has not helped the economy.
So how do you grade Joe Biden?
I would give him a B minus.
It's exactly what I would do as well. That's exactly what I would do as well.
Generous,
B minus.
Because I think that he's done a lot of things. Going back to what you said about Carville's statement, I think Carville is spot on. That there's a lot of accomplishments we don't see. I think, for example, the handling of Russia and Ukraine up to this moment has been really good. Okay, and this is a big issue. Let's not pretend it isn't. His administration has handled this pretty well from how it appears. The infrastructure bill is important. I've been an advocate, as you know, on your show, that this should have been what President Obama did first as opposed to health care, because, again, for the reasons we talked about. I think that Biden has done a lot of things. What puzzles me, Howard, is the low-hanging fruit that he could have done that he didn't. Right. Revamp the Postal Service Board, for example. That would have been something that would have gotten rid of the craziness, as you put it, and sort of restored Postal Service, taken out the politics of that President Trump had put in. And, the whole prosecutions of January 6th seems to be slow. Now they're picking up. There's some low-hanging fruit that he didn't do that probably could have enhanced the image of accomplishment through some accomplishments. And Carville is correct on this.
One last issue I want to ask you about real quick. There have been several people recently suggesting that Hillary Clinton ought to get back in the race for the next election. Dick Morris, I think Dick Morris is goofy, but Dick Morris, one time a Clinton advisor, offered those comments this week. Others have made similar suggestions. I think, I'm trying to think who else. Some other people did. We talked this week with former Congresswoman Marjorie Margolis, who is Hillary's sister-in-law, and she says, she's heard the suggestions. She'd like to see her run, has no inside info on that. Any shot at that at all? What's your insider's feeling about that?
This is the first I've heard about it. That I've been really focused, as you can imagine, on Ukraine. I'm just surprised to hear this, and I would have to ask a couple quick questions. You mean run against Joe Biden? I mean, as opposed to Biden saying he's not running and then she runs again. Right there, that's a big difference. Right there, I can't. If there's a primary challenge to President Biden, that all but guarantees, I think, that the Republicans will win the White House in 2024. Unless it's some minor politician. I don't mean to diminish anybody, but someone of the stature of Hillary Clinton running against President Biden, it would just be like the Kennedy Carter thing in 1980 again, and this weakens the party totally. So I would say that woof on that one. If Biden doesn't seek re-election and Hillary Clinton wants to run again, that would be interesting. Again, as I said a couple minutes ago on your show, I think a lot of people voted for President Trump because they didn't want to vote for her.
Right.
Not sure how that would have changed in 8 years.
Yeah, I tend to think you're right. I don't think Dick Morris in his comments made any suggestion of how he thought he would get to a Trump-Clinton race. He just went to the Trump-Clinton thing. Wall Street Journal had a piece this week, someone suggesting that Hillary should run. But again, I think the assumption would be if Biden were to choose not to run, then Hillary would be there. I think it would just be a terrible mistake. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. A horrible mistake for Hillary and for the party.
I think the party's going to face the problem if President Biden, let's just say, if President Biden doesn't run, that presents a series of problems right away with Vice President Harris if she seeks the nomination, and then people are going to oppose that. They're already going to have a challenge of uniting the party in 2024 if President Biden doesn't seek re-election. It's not me advocating anything. I want to make it clear. I'm just, as you say, my political ear.
Yeah, and I got to move on, but I would say the bottom line of all of this still is to keep in mind Biden was elected to stop the crazy and not on anything that he himself necessarily was going to do or policies. And I think we got to keep that in mind as we look at 2024. All right, Tom, I appreciate your time today, as I always do. Good conversation. We'll talk next week.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Tom Squitieri, a national correspondent, Pentagon reporter most of the time, USA Today award-winning writer, and has been all over the world as a foreign correspondent and shares his thoughts with us every week around this time. We are doing the one-year anniversary of Joe Biden as president, and how do you grade him? Tomorrow, I'll have the same conversation with former congressman, former WVOI talk show host, Bob Ney. And then on Thursday, our contributing political analyst, Matt Robeson, will be here to talk about it as well. So Biden's one-year report card, what we're into. We're going to go down to Charleston, see what's cooking in the legislature with Brad McElhenney. That's coming up after we check some news, and Tony has the Morning Mountaineer Report.
Now it's time for your local news headlines from 7 News at WTRF, My Ohio Valley, and ABC Ohio Valley. Only on AM 1600 WKKX.
Valley, I'm Stephen Ruffing with your 7 News headlines. While you hit the road this morning, watch out because roads might still be a little dicey with a little bit of ice. Now, in addition to the tough driving conditions, there's more to worry about when it comes to your safety. Road crews are out working as quickly as they can. Many of you will be working on your driveways and sidewalks, so emergency officials say take it slow. With that heavy snow, be careful not to strain yourself. And while you're clearing the snow, first responders have a request. If there is a fire hydrant in your area and it's covered in snow, they ask you to clear it out. Other news from across the state, Governor Justice returned to his office. After battling COVID, he thanked everyone for their prayers and good wishes. The governor took off his face mask as he was alone in his office for yesterday's COVID-19 briefing. As always, he was joined via Zoom with his task force. The governor praised his medical team. He, without the vaccines and a booster, he would have been in much worse shape. He called the whole ordeal profound. If you have somewhere to keep warm as the temperatures dip down, you have somewhere to go in Belmont County. Grace Presbyterian Church in Martins Ferry has been one of the county's official warming shelters for years. Reverend William Webster says the coffee's always on and you're always welcome. It's handicap accessible with an elevator and even a shower. That was a look at your headlines. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
The Angry Bears from Baylor are ready for the Coliseum. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Caridi. That story coming up on today's Mountaineer Report. It's brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics.
At Kroger, fresh groceries are our thing. So we do freshness checks on the items in your delivery order at every step of their journey from our farms to our stores. And pick and pack every blue, raz, and strawberry in your free pickup order with the
West Virginia, and the Baylor Bears tip it off at 5 p.m. this afternoon. That means we'll be on the air here on MSN beginning at 4 o'clock. Baylor comes to town after losing back-to-back games for the first time in 1,038 days. That's right, their loss last Saturday to Oklahoma State snapped a 76 consecutive game streak without back-to-back losses. Now, this will be Baylor's first return trip to Morgantown since they clinched the Big 12 championship last season. Great game, 94-89 overtime final. That was back on March the 2nd. Then the Bears went out and won the national championship. Today's game, 21st meeting all time between the two schools, all coming in the last 11 seasons. Baylor is 12-8 against the Mountaineers all time. Baylor has won 4 of the last 5. The lone loss came in Morgantown back at the end of the 2019-2020 season. It was the final game of the year. In fact, the Bears have won their last 3 trips to Morgantown, but they are 2-4 overall in their last 6 trips inside the WVU Coliseum. Baylor, as you know, has been really good. Think about this. They have won 12 consecutive games away from home, 9 neutral, 3 road games. And Baylor is 16-3 in Big 12 road games over the last 3 seasons. Another tough challenge for the Mountaineers. That is today's Mountaineer Report. It's brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi on the Mountaineer Sports Network from Learfield.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the Watchdog trusts.
The new year is here, and so are the new Toyotas. So visit your dealer and reserve yours today. Like the all-new Tundra, redesigned from the ground up and engineered for uncompromising power. Or explore the brand new Corolla Cross with available all-wheel drive and more cargo room than ever. Visit your Toyota dealer today or go online to buyatoyota.com, the official website for deals. Hurry, offers end January 31st. Toyota, let's go places.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Sometimes the best time to prune trees is when they're dormant or with no leaves on them. For ISA certified arborists, it helps them see what branches may need to be pruned or removed. Dormant season pruning can also help lessen problems associated with insects and diseases and help create structurally stronger trees that can better handle heavy wet snows or ice buildup. Contact an ISA certified arborist to get the best professional advice on keeping your trees healthy and safe. Go to treesforohio.org. That's trees, 4, ohio.org.
We're a farm store, a family store, a look what I found store. We're a store made for real people and some real beasts. We're a hey neighbor kind of store and an everyday low price store. We're Rural King, and we're working hard to be your favorite store. Check out the huge selection of men's, women's, and kids' Wrangler clothing at the lowest prices every day, like these Wrangler Retro Bootcut jeans for just $49.99.
If you missed us the first time, keep going. You'll find us just down the dial. AM 1600 and 1370, FM 98.1 and 97.7. We are the Watchdog.
Live and local for the Ohio Valley, the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Legislature meeting in Charleston. They're in their regular session. Session started last Wednesday, about a week ago. But it seems weird to me this year, and I don't know if that's because some of the biggest stuff was actually done in the special session 2 or 3 days before the regular session started, or if it's because the governor was sick with COVID, so did not deliver an actual State of the State speech, which is kind of the official kickoff, or if things are just moving more slowly. I don't know. It just feels like a weird session to me so far. Brad McElhenney is covering it for Metro News. Brad, does that make sense to you? Does it seem strange to you this year?
It does. And, so behind the scenes, I've got a daily morning call with Hoppy just to get our ducks in a row, kind of get on the same page. And man, I'm afraid he's going to maybe send me like one of those fruit bouquets or something. Because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about because it's so slow right now. And I think you're right that it was just off with a bang with the special session, and then the governor was out of the mix. I mean, even before the legislature started, in fairness, they got a lot done with the new core announcement and the related legislation. Whether you agree or disagree, that was a big thing, and the other economic development announcements. And then the governor got sick, and the snow hit, and it was a holiday, and it really just feels like we're, as the governor would say, in the ditch. But we're getting out of the ditch. Things will begin moving sometime soon. And get back with me in a month, and I may say, oh, man, remember when it was so slow? That was nice.
I think the new core deal and the other deals around it, they're the kind of thing that would have almost been a centerpiece of a session if they hadn't happened before the session. They technically happened in the special session. So it was almost like the big thunder was taken away before they even gavelled in to regular session. Maybe I'm reading that wrong, but that's just kind of like, that's what I feel like. And then without the governor doing his usual, big speech, it just feels like we sort of just kind of eased into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and, the big deal, I think, is going to be pay raises for public employees and the bonuses, but nobody really disagrees about those. The state budget is in this sort of kind of Goldilocks position where it's not a crisis, but the state, at least in the general fund, is not necessarily loaded with money. Now, there is a lot of federal money coming down, and the state's got to deal with that. And the governor, aside from these economic development announcements, there's nothing overriding aside from the pay raise that I've seen the governor say he really wants to do. I mean, last year we kind of focused on the income tax plan that he was barnstorming the state on, and I mean, I think that's on the back burner at this point. I've heard some policy priorities, of course, from Speaker Hanshaw and Senate President Blair, but nothing that's necessarily, all right, all eyes on this. When we get to those, they will be worthy of attention and debate, but they're not necessarily things where, it makes the whole state go, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going to do this thing. So it may just be one of those where it's like, all right, we got a little of this, a little of that, but nothing that draws the entire state's attention.
It looks to me as if Republican leadership is trying to put some of these social issues front and center, at least up front. I guess the biggest issue so far, setting aside the new core and development stuff, biggest issue, I guess, is this abortion restriction bill, right?
Yeah, that's been the bill that has, I think, drawn the most attention so far and the most public interest. I was not surprised to see that bill. In fact, I would have been surprised to not see it. I mean, when Mississippi's 15-week limit got before the Supreme Court, and the court acted like, all right, we're going to take this seriously, and may very well rule, at least to some degree, in Mississippi's favor, it certainly seemed like West Virginia would have some corresponding legislation. And sure enough, this is basically Mississippi's law, just, put the word West Virginia on it, and you've got it. I was a little surprised, though, that it was right there on an agenda for the first week of the session. I guess that does give it the impression that it's a priority. I think, maybe what's happening here is twofold, and I've gathered this thinking from Delegate Kayla Kessinger, a Republican from Fayette County who was on with Hoppy. If you have run over the years on a pro-life platform and you think that is a large part of your backing and why you've been elected, people support you for that, then you come to think, well, I got to deliver on that, and now's the chance. And another thing that Delegate Kessinger said was, we want to do it now so that it is clear that it's not just Mississippi out there, that West Virginia is right there with you and trying to do the same thing to sort of make a politically symbolic splash by moving in line with Mississippi. So I think that's why you saw it first, but it also surprised me that it was, absolutely front and center.
There was a public hearing on this week. I think I'm right in saying that most of the people who spoke were against the bill?
That is true. Most were. I didn't necessarily count how many people were speaking, but other reporters, I think, counted 17 speakers, 12 of whom were against this bill or pro-abortion rights. Sometimes the arguments were not necessarily about the specifics of the bill, but more broadly about abortion rights or being sort of pro-life, characterizing it that way. I was telling Hoppy in my conversation with him this morning, it's hard for me to draw conclusions sometimes from public hearings, in part because you may be very interested in a topic or at least have a point of view on it if you're an average West Virginia citizen, but the access to be able to come to the Capitol at 3 o'clock on a snowy Monday afternoon, I think, certainly leaves out a lot of people who have decisions, who have points of view. And what you get often is people who either live in the Kanawha Valley and have a strong point of view, or who represent organizations that exist to represent that point of view. So I certainly listened carefully to what people were saying and tried to listen to what their points were, but it's by watching one of these public hearings, it's hard for me to judge really where public sentiment lies.
Yeah, the public hearings to me are always a difficult thing. I think they're a great opportunity for people to express ideas, and as a member of the Wheeling Planning Commission, I've been on the other side of public hearings, listening to the public. What I tend to get more often, I'm not sure I always get a cross-section of what people are feeling, but a lot of times we get some new or different ideas that we hadn't thought when someone brings something up in a public hearing. They're really hard sometimes to assess. You're right. Who's here? Why are they here? How many people aren't here but have an interest in this? I think that's a good point. This bill is likely to pass. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think most West Virginia legislators in the supermajorities are going to conclude that their constituents in West Virginia generally would consider themselves pro-life, despite this public hearing where most of the speakers were speaking for abortion rights. I just think that lawmakers will look at who their constituents are and conclude that it's a pro-life constituency.
Brad, absent any other big issues, I've been just kind of nosing around to see what's out there. One of the bills that caught my attention, and I called it to your attention, and you don't think it's likely to go anywhere, is I think it's HB 2202. They're calling it the Interstate Commerce Act. It's, I think this was introduced similarly last year, designed to make sure that cities and municipalities and counties and so on cannot have discrimination, anti-discrimination laws any less severe than the state. The state law would be the defining law. I have no idea where that's going to go. You took a quick look at that. It's not something you're following, but you're making a guess. It's probably not going to get a lot of traction. Is that right?
Well, that was my guess, and I will say that, sometimes before a bill has hit an agenda, I'll take a look and see who the sponsors are and whether they have sway. And in this case, what I saw was the lead sponsor was Joe Jeffries, a delegate from, where is Jeffries from? Anyway, Jeffries, if you may remember a few months ago, was the guy who had the risque TikTok videos, and there was about a week of turmoil.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Joe Jeffries, Republican from Putnam County, and I think he got pulled off of all of his. Oh, he is on one remaining committee, the Government Organization Committee. So And he's again, I think he announced he is not running again. I just think he has very limited sway, which is not to say, you know, it couldn't fool me and it winds up right there on the government organization committee. And I could be wrong. But I just thought, all right, well, Joe Jeffries has about as little juice as anybody at the House of Delegates, and it probably ain't going to happen. But little juice, that might have been unfortunate. Go back and edit that phrase out. That's unfortunate given his background.
I got you. Yes, you're. It's a good point. This is kind of in tune with some things that were done last year, though, in the session, or at least proposed, and a real effort to diminish the power of the cities and other political subdivisions, giving the state the most powerful authority, which is kind of what this is all about. The state will set the non-discrimination guidelines, and cities like Wheeling that already have much more lenient laws on discrimination would have to give up their laws in favor of the state. There does seem to be some movement towards that in the legislature. At least there was last year as well as this year, I think.
Yeah, it seemed that way, particularly, for example, with the syringe bill. I'm trying to come up with the broader term for that, but
harm.
The harm reduction bill, making it so that there were sort of double hoops to go through in some cases for communities to have harm reduction bills or harm reduction policies within. You'd have to go to the city you're in and get their permission, and probably also the county commission. And the argument was that, well, you're really making it so that it's very difficult to jump through the governmental hoops to have this harm reduction program that would include trying to provide clean needles for people so that they don't pass on communicable disease. So there was that kind of feeling. It seems strange because, traditionally I at least had thought of Republicans as having these small government platforms where the government closest to the people is the best government. But sometimes you're right. It has seemed like some of these bills run counter to that and say, all right, well, the state has to make the call on this. So all right, Brad, I see where you're coming from.
I gotta run. Appreciate your time. Clock is telling me sayonara. We will talk again, perhaps even later this week. But I'll be following you on Twitter all the time, like I always do.
Thanks, Howard. Will do.
Talk to you soon. 9 o'clock, Watchdog Morning Show.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
Admissions have gone down more than 5%.
All right, hopefully Dave Palmer at 9:15, Biffy, if this alarm goes off.